There we go.
All right.
Hello. Now
Back.
we got it.
Sorry about that, Jeff.
Well, that's okay. It happens all the time. It's like the nature of the beast that you're out in the country, so you're not going to have Wi-Fi and the connection's not always great. So, just, could you introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are, and then a little bit background of how you came into the wine game and ended up where you are.
Well, I'm Michael Keenan, the current owner of the Robert Keenan Winery. Took over from my dad 22 years ago.
Mike, I
And
can't hear you very well. Can you maybe step a little bit closer?
I'm Michael Keenan, the current owner of the Robert Keenan Winery. Robert was my father. He started the winery, bought the property in 1974, and we had our first harvest in 1977, which he and I worked together on. And then I
Wow.
fled after that and had my first real career, which was in construction, and never thought I'd come back. But 1998, he asked me really nicely to come back and pick up where we left off. And to make a long story short, I said yes. And I've been here for 22 years and just love it.
I think that time away is all.
My name is Reilly.
You come back.
I turned around and started working for the old family farm about 4 years ago.
Did your dad ask nicely?
No, he
Reilly,
kind
did
of
your
forced
dad ask
himself
nice?
on me.
It's so
But
nice.
he's been really nice to me
Winery.
since.
It's really nice a family winery. You so often see it in Europe handed down from generations, and we just don't have that tradition. I think you have it much more there, so it's really nice to see. Can you explain where you are?
Yeah, we're on the corner of our irrigation pond, which is in front of us. Behind us is our Chardonnay vineyard, which is right in front of the winery. Winery's up above the hill right there. And we're kind of at the juncture of three different vineyards. Behind me
Okay.
is the Chardonnay vineyard, which is 25 years old. This direction, right where we're above, is our experimental vineyard. We planted Menthea, Mourvedre, and Petit Verdot. And then across the pond, below that giant mailbox, is our top Merlot vineyard, aka the mailbox vineyard, where our
Okay. That's on my list.
north and west facing site here. But great sun exposure. Sun sets that direction, get a little bit of shade at the end of the day. We're a little bit cooler from elevation, so it's a great combination of more hours of sunlight because we don't have any fog up here, 99.9% of the time. And we have cooler temperatures because of elevation, so it's a great place to get great physiological maturity with a higher acid profile, which is just an enormous advantage in making wines that have, depth of fruit plus body, acidity, long-lasting qualities in the cellar, brightness to them that remains with the wines for years and years and years. And also, the Chardonnay vineyard is just a rare site in today's Napa. There are very few mountain Chardonnay sites left because most have been ripped out for economic reasons because you can make more money growing Cabernet. But it's hard to really point out, but on the far south side of the Chardonnay vineyard is the coolest place on the property. It's this dark canyon that draws in this cool air from God knows where. It makes us the coolest microsite on the property. And it's perfect for Chardonnay. And now these vines are 25 years old. They're fully mature and have been for a long time. We actually haven't watered this vineyard except for the replants that we put in. We do that by hand now. We stopped watering this vineyard in 2001. So it's a mountain, dry farmed Chardonnay vineyard, which is really, really rare.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by dry farming. I think it's always just fascinating to me. Can you tell, you're on Spring Mountain, right?
Correct.
So this is a very basic question, and there's a lot of wine pros on here watching, but there will be some consumers too. And I always like to ask, what makes Napa special? Why is Napa so great? And then can you tell, and I think it involves your dad, but explain what Spring Mountain is about for us also, and why you're on Spring Mountain.
Sure. Well, first, taking Napa in general, it's a Mediterranean climate, which we were just looking at these maps actually over the weekend. There's so few places on Earth that actually have a true Mediterranean climate. And it's just so great for grape growing because we're dry for almost 6 months out of the year. I mean, our rain season really ends around April 1st, and that's when the growing season begins. And then our growing season is usually done by mid-October, and November 1st is usually the beginning of the rainy season. So that dry, warm, somewhat temperate climate and the soils we have are just, they're great all over Napa. But what makes Spring Mountain unique is that we're right in the middle of the Mayacamas Mountains as far as north-south. So we're on the west side of the valley, and we catch the storms first when they come from the Pacific across the Sonoma County. And because of the little gap, saddle-shaped gap in the mountain pass right above us, we get more storm energy funneled through here. So we average 56 inches of rain a year, which is probably the rainiest place in Napa County. And since the ground is so rocky, we're in the mountains, so it's kind of volcanic and sedimentary. We have tremendous drainage, so that rain just goes into the aquifer below us, and we have hopefully an endless amount of water to tap into. So it's a great place to combine, as I said, ripeness because of sun exposure, acidity because of cooler temperatures, plenty of water, richness in the soil, minerality in the soil, great drainage, that we can retain the sense of freshness. It's a word I use a lot now, especially since we've been doing a lot of library tasting over the last 2 months. And even our wines that are 20, 17 years old, 15 years old, they still retain this sense of freshness. It is, I think, pretty unique to Spring Mountain.
And what does that come from? The freshness, is it acidity? Is it picking at a certain time? Is it ripeness? What gives it that freshness?
Well, it's a combination of all those things. I think now that we've made the decision where our farm is and what we're planting here, our most important decision we make every year is when we pick. And that's, to me, it's critical because I think in the new world, especially in California, all over California, not just Napa, it's really common for people to ripen grapes, I think, a little too long because we can.
Right.
It's really hard not to get carried away. But, my father was shown the wine world through the lens of Bordeaux and Burgundy by his father-in-law. And that's what he passed on to me, was this real traditional sense of wines that are meant to respond to food and meant to stand the test of time. And if you pick too late, you miss both of those dynamics. You have to have the natural acidity at the right level to have that eternal sense of freshness. And also by picking at the right time, we get that window of physiological maturity open, but we retain all the subdominant, savory, herbaceous, terroir-driven markers that can get overwhelmed if you ripen it even for another week, and then the fruit just dominates the wine. And then in Napa, it's quite common to have that heavier fruit, but then with a lot of oak to make the Napa style.
Yeah.
But I think the discerning consumer will easily see from our wines that they're not the typical Napa wines. They're distinctly different. They're fresher. They're more savory. They really do respond better to food, and they live longer in the cellar.
That's really, I mean, you said it so well. You really explained why so many, well, not so many, but.
And I think, just to talk about our family dynamic for a second, I was asked, we had a master sommelier here last fall, and he asked me, he goes, how's your style different than your father's style? And I said to him, I don't think my style is any different. I think he gave me my fundamentals that I just explained to you, literally as a kid. I think the only difference between what I'm doing, what my dad did, is just because of time and the ability to learn through different vintages and experimentation. We just have gotten a lot better at what we do. And, Dad was in the vanguard of trying this for the first time.
Right.
No one had ever grown Cabernet or Merlot or Cabernet Franc or Chardonnay on this land ever until we planted it in the 70s. This is a site of an older ghost winery called the Conradi Winery at the turn of the 19th century. And they grew mostly, Zinfandel and Alicante and Carignan, which we also grow as a kind of a nod to their history. But, Dad was a pioneer, and it's taken us a while to really learn where on the property certain varietals should go, how to farm them, not to be religiously adhering to dry farming, which can be too stressful in certain stages of the development of the vines and certain seasons that are really hot. And just to get back to the family thing, is I'm really grateful and happy that my son has just completely understands our philosophy and embraces it. At the same time, he wants to also create, something new and be innovative in his own right. But that fundamental tenet of what we do and how we do it has really been firmly shared by now 3 generations of Keenans, which is just wonderful.
So, but how do you, or how did your dad, and then as you're evolving, how do you decide this plot now? Okay, I think it's going to be best for Carignan, for example, or how do you figure that out?
Well, some of it's trial and error, some of it's just lucky guesswork, and some of it is you learn through experience that something's not working here, and then we should try something else.
And how long does that take? 5 years?
A generation.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, once you make a change in a vineyard, it can take, well, I mean, within 5 years, you can see what the fruit is, but it's going to take another 10 years after that to see what the maturity is and what develops in the second and third stage of the vine's life. I mean, now that we've been here long enough, we're seeing changes in some vineyards when they hit the age of 17 and 18 years old, and for the better, which to me is just incredibly heartening. We've got a Merlot block in the vineyard above us, which is called the Upper Bowl. It's our highest elevation vineyard. And I think it was, I can't remember what year it was, 2014, which was the 17th leaf of that vineyard. All of a sudden, that Merlot went from being just really dense, massive, and inarticulate to being descriptive and layered and precise. It was a really remarkable thing to see at such a late stage, where I thought by the age of 10, we kind of saw what the vines were going to do. But we still are talking about, we don't know what the lifespan of our top wines are in the cellar. I mean, we know that right now we've had the 01 Reserve Cabernet, I think a week ago for dinner, and that wine's got 20 years left on it, and it's approaching 20 right now. And those are picked off vines that were 4 years old. So now that we're making stuff off vines that are over the age of 20, maybe those wines will live even longer.
It sounds incredible, and it's fascinating also. So I kind of know the answer to this, but why don't you rip out the Chardonnay behind you and plant Cabernet?
It was really one of the first thoughts I had when I came back in '98. I knew I kind of had to breathe life into the program and kind of redo almost everything, because Dad had been kind of a hands-off owner during the '90s and the late '80s. He was sidetracked on other stuff I don't want to get into, but I knew I was going to do a total redo. So when I came back in '98, the Chardonnay was in its 4th leaf. And I thought, why are we growing a white from Burgundy with all these reds from Bordeaux? We're one or the other, was my thinking. And then I thought, well, at least I should wait till the vineyard matures before I rip it out to see what it produces. And we are never going to rip this vineyard out. It produces, to me, a really unique, classic interpretation of the phenomenal Chardonnay grape. And we make it in the old Napa school style with no malolactic fermentation. About 30% new oak, mostly French. And keep in mind that mountain fruit will take the impact of oak less than valley fruit. So me using 30% is like somebody from Carneros using 20. And because of the mountain pedigree, this Chardonnay has a lot of verve to it. I mean, it's got great acidity, minerality, but it's got an energy to it that is really unique because of the elevation.
Yeah, and Jeff, it's also a kind of a freaky block because, like we said, it's dry farmed. It's the oldest vines on the property. They're over 2 decades old. And we sometimes get more than 10 tons an acre up here.
We've never gotten more than 10 tons an acre, except for maybe last year.
We call it the magic block. We don't understand how it happens, but it does.
Well, this is interesting to talk about because we've all heard the ancient axiom, and this was, Emile Pinot, the father of modern winemaking in Bordeaux. So the 3 pillars of modern winemaking are crop thin, hang longer, and for God's sakes, you dirty Frenchmen, clean up your cellars. And so everyone has learned that, by green harvesting and reducing crop, you increase intensity, therefore you make a higher quality wine. Well, after 10 years of working up here, my mind was slightly changed on that formula. I think it's true in most wine regions. That's a great idea, to crop thin, to improve concentration and quality. But in the mountains, our default setting is concentration and intensity. And now that I've had, 20 plus vintages of my own to look back on, all of my favorite vintages are years where our yields were a little bit above average. And granted, with the Merlot and the Cab Franc and the Cabernet, those are really tight ranges. I mean, when we go crazy on Cabernet yields, we hit 4 tons an acre. When somebody down in the valley goes crazy like they did in 97 and '07, they can hit 8, 9 tons an acre. That's impossible for us. But with Chardonnay, we hit 8 tons an acre in 2006, and none of us could believe it. In fact, I lied about the production that year on the tech sheet and said, look, I don't want to deal with anybody's preconceived notion about how good the Chardonnay is until we're done selling it. And once it's gone, I'll talk honestly about yields, which I have done since then. So if the vines are healthy enough and they have enough input, sunlight, water, nutrients, you don't need to, say you got 10 clusters per vine, you don't need to take 5 off to make a great wine. If they're all healthy, you just throw money away.
Totally. So in the glass, how does that Chardonnay or other Napa Chardonnay taste-wise?
Well, Stony Hill is kind of one of our neighbors. Would be the closest to Stony Hill, or in Sonoma.
Smith Madrone.
Smith Madrone, actually one of our neighbors. Hansel is pretty close to what we do over in Sonoma. A lot of Napa has gone to malolactic fermentation for various reasons. So our profile is, to me, a little bit purer, a little bit cleaner, and has more of a natural expression of subtle, dynamic Chardonnay flavor. And again, with the elevation, you really get that sense of dynamic verve that is really singular. So it's a really unique Chardonnay.
You have a really great way of explaining things. People are saying that in the comments too. You have a brilliant vocabulary of wine words that is fascinating for me. Can you tell me how many hectares, I think in hectares, but how big the estate is? And then can you list all the grapes and maybe how they stand out? Because it sounds like your Cabernet Franc is probably different than other Cabernet Franc.
Our Cabernet Franc we jokingly refer to as the secret weapon here in the tasting room. You know, once you have it, you just have to have it again. It's again, because of our exposure, we can ripen it easily at 24 degrees Brix, even 23 degrees Brix, and have the green elements nicely in the subdominant zone, and have the fruit and the perfume in the dominant zone. But to answer your question, technically, our estate is 180 acres total, of which 47 in 4 different vineyards are planted to grapes. So we have a nice ratio of wild land to planted land. So it's that to me is like the foundation step to one of our sustainability keys, is that we have more natural forest here for natural habitat than we do developed land. And that's obviously not the case in the valley, where most 40-acre plots are 39 acres of Cabernet and 1 acre of roads, house, 1 oak tree, 1 palm tree, and 1 swimming pool. So it's a nice balance. And then we grow Cabernet Sauvignon is our #1 varietal by a very small margin over Merlot. Then Chardonnay, then Cabernet Franc, then Zinfandel, then a really small amount of Alicante Bouschet and Carignan for the Zinfandel field blend. And then 3 years ago, we planted as an experiment a third of an acre of Mencia and Mourvèdre, and Petit Verdot, which we're going to get our first crop off of this year. And the Mencia and the Mourvèdre were Reilly's ideas. He got me drinking Raul Perez's wines from Spain, and got me really interested in that varietal. So we planted some here to see. I think it's going to do really well here.
That sounds exciting. Go Reilly. Can't wait to try that. I want to just say that even just where we're looking at the ratio of vine to like forest, you can see that it's not like the other wineries you're talking about. But
right.
Big kick of biodiversity. What does that benefit the vineyard? Is it the vitality that it's sturdier to stand up against frost and drought? Or it's hard to say, how does that biodiversity benefit the wine?
There's actually a few disadvantages that I can tick off right away. Because of the surrounding lush riparian zones, we do have a lot higher humidity up here than the valley floor or Atlas Peak. Which does produce a little bit more disease pressure. Mold, powdery mildew, that kind of thing are always things that we have to monitor much more actively than I think other places in Napa. And then there's also more vectors for leaf hoppers, glassy wing sharpshooters. everything, you name it, lives up here. So it's just a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more proactive in the vineyard and really pay attention all the time.
But I think the positives way outweigh the negatives. I mean, we got to work a little bit harder, as you do, even if we didn't have all this forest. Being in a mountain setting, everything is harder, from harvesting to planting to developing vineyards to whatever you're doing. But to me, the trade-off's well worth it, because we have a vibrant ecosystem with lots of animals. The bird life up here is amazing. They probably do help keep the mosquito life a little bit under control. A lot of bats up here, and a lot of fauna, and I mean, to me, that's just the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's also pretty to the eye.
Well, yeah. But I was just interviewing a guy in Bordeaux who he says that the trees and the vine roots meet underground and they share some fungi that help them all get along better. So
I believe it.
Fascinated. People talk about your Merlot, and it's the mailbox Merlot.
Yeah, that's our top Merlot, the mailbox Merlot.
And what makes it special? And there's a funny story with it attached that I was telling you?
It's a long story.
It's not funny. It's not really that good.
So what makes
the thing is, this block of Merlot was planted in 1997.
Okay.
And in 2003, which would have been its seventh leaf, all of a sudden it's began to display this, what I assumed was a terroir marker, this spicy, earthy, almost moly-like spice note to it. That it was really interesting, because we bottled the wine, didn't taste it, and then when we tasted the first bottle before we began to sell it, as was our custom, I remember putting my nose in the glass and thinking, where the hell's this spicy, earthy note coming from? I don't remember this at all. And I talked to my two guys, my cellar master, my GM. I said, do you guys remember this? And they're like, no. So we didn't see it until it had been in bottle for a year and a half from the seventh vintage, which is really unusual. It took that long for it to develop.
Oh, nice. He wants to be on camera. We got to see money. Oh, they left. They're doing it. They'll be back though. That's so cute. Tucker, they don't want to tell the story. He's such a good educator though. Gosh, these guys that live it, so often they are good educators. They can talk about it, but he's just got such a easy way of explaining things. All right. I hope they come back. That dog whining in the background was pretty funny, though. I think the dog's name is Hash Brown. Hi, Nelson. They better come back. I don't know. Maybe they got fed up with me and my questions. Okay. So should I end it, Tokar, or will they get on somebody else's? I think when it's hot like that, the phones give up. Okay, I'll stay on. Thank you, Tokar, for checking. My support team. I couldn't do it without you guys. Looks beautiful up there too, though. Hi, Veronique. Happy Bastille Day to France. Veronique Félon-Segur wished me a happy 4th of July, so I put it in my calendar every day to remember to say Happy Bastille Day to you back. Yeah, Eva, this is one of my 3 shirts I brought from New York. I'm still seeing shirts. I'm ready to go home. Nelson, I'm up in Connecticut. I'm staying with friends in West Hartford, and she's got these beautiful, I think they're begonias. This back deck is just extraordinary of all the flowers she's planted. Hi, Nico. Happy Bastille Day, Nico. It's so funny. It's the half hour. People are joining from just being on the half hour. Yeah, Connecticut's really nice. I'm wondering if they're gonna. Well, Chokar will let me know. I just hate to break it up. If I close this, I'll break it up into two. Yeah, I assume they're trying also. It's fine. Now is when I need a stand-up act, though, to like riff, have a joke or two, you know. I can tell you my schedule this week, but I don't have it with me. I'm organized like that. I don't even remember. Yeah, I'll sing, then I'll really lose everybody. Let's see. I don't think. Oh yeah, Chateau La Dauphine. Oh okay. Oh, I do have my schedule with me. So tomorrow is Chateau La Dauphine, which is Bordeaux. And Olia, how do you know everybody? You knew about Hash Brown. You must be connected with them, Olia. And then I'm at Pommery Champagne on Thursday in Champagne. And then Friday, I am. So there's a woman, Shikwe Peacock, who's a private chef that went to my friends in Roussillon to do harvest. And they are accepting applications for stages if you want to go pick grapes. I'm curious if people are going to go to harvest this fall, like out in California, because, yes, sparkling Mosaic, exactly, Nelson and Nico. But I'm curious about that. But I guess nobody can go to France for harvest. But so Shikwe is going to talk about her time in France as a harvest, like intern, harvest worker. And then, but she's a private chef too. She's a fabulous chef that makes everything look really easy on her Instagram, because she does a lot of, like, cooks for family dinners and stuff like that. And she does such a good job. And so I'm excited to see her and to catch up with her. So there we have it. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have. I feel bad that they're scrambling like this to get another Instagram or something, which, hi, Carrie. Carrie, so Shikwe, I don't think I told you this. Shikwe, I did. Shikwe is going to be on, Chef Shikwe is her handle on Instagram. She's going to be on Friday, and we're going to talk, okay, Tokar, thank you. We're going to talk about the stage she did with you, and are you still looking for interns, Carrie? We can't come to France anymore, so you have to find somebody over there, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. She does such a good job with her Instagram, and she travels a lot, and it's fun seeing the places she goes. Oh, you are good. Oh, okay, good. But it'll be fun to hear what it's like, because I've always fantasized about it. But I got as far as, my fantasy is to cook for a harvest crew, and when I had the chance at Carrie's, I bailed. I've been driving all day. Really? Good for you, Carrie. All French harvest workers. Wow. Times are changing. All right. I hate just making everybody look at me for, this is kind of boring. I apologize. I'm not going to harvest, but I have a friend who's going out to California, and I just wonder if restaurant people are unemployed if they can get out there, it'd be a thing to do at least, right? I don't know. My restaurant's opening back up in the middle of August, hopefully. You heard it here. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'm waiting for them to get, I think they're going to go to the tasting room where they have Wi-Fi and maybe less heat. It's already going to be ready next year, Nico? Okay, thanks, Tokar. I'll give him a few more minutes, but no, they haven't messaged me. If his phone died, and it's not going to be able to get back on, because even if they have Instagram on somebody else's phone, you know, who knows if he has the password and stuff, I wouldn't be able to do it. So, yeah, I'm about to go make myself a big gin and tonic, but I have a list of emails I have to get back to. This day has been a mess for me. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I should stick around. They're going to get back on, I guess. Yeah, just the birds. That's what I should do. Just make it bird cam, or just put the thing in the trees. Let y'all just look at the trees. Maybe I'll do that. It's your moment of zen. Oh yeah, I will save the live. Oh yeah, for sure. Have you ever really looked at a tree? I'm in West Hartford. Hi, David. David's my friend who's going out to. Okay. Okay, so then we're gonna end it, and we'll do it. We'll pick up another time. Thanks for following, you guys. Everybody, take care. Have a nice day.